What if one wrong text message could change your entire life? A poor single mom needed just $40 for medicine. But the man who received it had billions and no reason to care. Until he heard her baby crying in the background. And in that moment, everything shifted. This is where Lena's story begins. A story that will expose secrets buried deep in power and money, and prove that time and chance happens to all. But let me ask you, have you ever had one mistake turn into a blessing in disguise? Share your story in the comments. Lena Mitchell sat on the edge of her worn couch, staring at her phone screen through tears that threatened to fall. The eviction notice lay crumpled on the coffee table beside unpaid bills that seemed to multiply like weeds. But none of that mattered right now. What mattered was the sound coming from the tiny bedroom down the hall. Her 6-month-old daughter Emma's labored breathing, punctuated by weak, pitiful cries. The pharmacy had been crystal clear. $40 for the antibiotic that could break Emma's fever. $40 that might as well have been $4,000. Lena's bank account showed a devastating balance of $12.37. With trembling fingers, she scrolled to her sister Rachel's contact. Rachel lived 3 states away in Colorado, working double shifts at a diner, but she was Lena's only hope. The message typed itself through desperation. Rachel, I know you're struggling too, but Emma's fever won't break. Doctor says she needs antibiotics. $40. I wouldn't ask if I had any other choice. I can pay you back when my unemployment comes through next week. Please. She attached a voice memo, her voice cracking as Emma's cries filled the background. Rach, listen, she's been like this for 2 days. I'm scared. Her thumb hovered over the send button. Pride warred with desperation. Pride lost. She hit send. Across the country in Manhattan, Thatcher Vance sat in his corner office on the 42nd floor of Vance Industries Tower. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a commanding view of the city that never slept, but his attention was fixed on quarterly reports that painted a picture of unprecedented success. His pharmaceutical division alone had generated over $2 billion in revenue this year. The soft chime of his phone interrupted his concentration. An unknown number. Normally, his assistant filtered everything, but she'd stepped out for lunch. He almost ignored it entirely. Something made him look. The message appeared innocent enough at first glance. Someone asking for money. His finger moved toward the delete button, then froze. There was a voice memo attached. Curiosity, perhaps foolish, made him tap play. A young woman's voice filled his office, raw with exhaustion and fear. But it was the sound underneath that stopped his world completely. A baby's cry. Weak, pained, desperate. For a moment, Thatcher was no longer a billionaire in a Manhattan tower. He was a father standing in a hospital room 8 years ago, holding his daughter Sophia's tiny hand as machines beeped around her. She'd been Emma's age when the rare genetic condition took her. He'd had all the money in the world, the best doctors, the most advanced treatments. None of it had mattered. But this baby just needed $40. His fingers moved before his mind could catch up, typing a response that would have made his board of directors question his sanity. Medicine ordered and paid for at CVS on Maple Street. Pickup under Emma Mitchell. Baby supplies being delivered within the hour. A friend. He didn't sign his name. He didn't expect a response. He certainly didn't expect what happened next. Lena stared at her phone in complete bewilderment. The message had come from the same number she'd texted, but the response made no sense. She texted Rachel, her sister who barely scraped by on tips and minimum wage. This person was talking about ordering medicine and baby supplies like money was no object. She called the CVS. Her hands shook as the pharmacist confirmed, "Yes, ma'am, Emma Mitchell's prescription is ready. Fully paid for, plus we have some additional items. diapers, formula, baby Tylenol. Delivery address matches yours. 20 minutes later, a delivery truck pulled up outside her shabby apartment complex. The driver handed her boxes filled with everything a mother could need and more. High-end diapers, organic formula, toys, even a car seat that cost more than her monthly rent. With Emma finally sleeping peacefully after her first dose of antibiotics, Lena typed a message back. I think there's been a mistake. I was texting my sister Rachel about medicine money. I don't know who you are, but I can't accept charity. Please tell me how to return everything and pay you back. The response came within minutes. No mistake on my end. Your baby needed help. I could provide it. That's all that matters. Keep everything. T became her mystery guardian angel. Over the following weeks, their text conversations grew longer, more personal. He never asked for anything, never pushed for more information than she willingly shared. He simply listened. Lena found herself opening up to this stranger in ways she hadn't with anyone since Emma's father abandoned them. She told him about her dreams of finishing her pharmacy degree, how she'd been just one semester away when the pregnancy changed everything. How she'd worked at Morrison Pharmaceuticals for 8 months before Emma arrived, grateful for the decent salary that made her believe she could manage as a single mother. Morrison Pharmaceuticals, T texted back. Tell me about that job. Something in the way he asked made Lena hesitate. But she'd come to trust this voice in her phone, this person who'd literally saved her daughter's life. The interview was amazing, she typed. They offered me $52,000 annually, full benefits. I was so relieved. But when I got my first paycheck, something fell off. Take-home pay was much lower than expected. HR said it was normal deductions, tax withholdings, mandatory contributions to company programs I didn't remember signing up for. She continued, I kept track of everything. By my calculations, they were taking out an extra $400 to $500 per month beyond normal taxes and insurance. When I questioned it, my supervisor said I was mistaken, that I'd misunderstood my offer letter. Made me feel stupid for even asking. Do you still have your offer letter? T asked. Every document. I keep meticulous records. Why? There was a long pause before T responded. Because I think you might be the key to something much bigger than either of us realized. But before Lena could ask what he meant, her phone rang. Unknown number. Local area code. Miss Mitchell? This is Vincent Hale from Morrison Pharmaceuticals. I understand you've been making some concerning inquiries about your former employment. I think we should meet. The line went dead, leaving Lena with a chill that had nothing to do with her apartment's broken heating. If you're enjoying this story so far, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because what happens next will completely change everything you think you know about corporate America. And trust me, you won't want to miss it. Thatcher Vance stared at his phone screen long after Lena's last message. Morrison Pharmaceuticals. His own subsidiary, one of 12 companies under the Vance Industries umbrella. He'd acquired it 3 years ago, impressed by their consistent profitability and low employee turnover. Now he understood why the turnover was low. Employees couldn't afford to leave. Within hours, Thatcher's most trusted investigator, Rebecca Chin, sat across from his desk with a stack of files that made his stomach turn. It's systematic, Rebecca said, her voice tight with controlled anger. Vincent Hale and Miranda Blake have been running this scheme for at least 4 years, probably longer. They target employees in vulnerable positions. Single parents, people with limited job options, anyone unlikely to make waves. She spread out documents across his mahogany desk. Look at this hiring pattern. They show competitive salaries during interviews, make legitimate offers on paper. But once employees start working, mysterious deductions appear. Administrative fees, mandatory wellness contributions, specialized training costs. All funneled into shell accounts that Hale and Blake control jointly. How much are we talking about? Thatcher asked, though he dreaded the answer. Conservative estimate? They've stolen over $8 million from their own employees over 4 years. Some workers have lost 15 to 20% of their promised salaries. The brilliant part is they spread it thin enough that most people assume it's normal corporate bureaucracy. Rebecca pulled up email records on her laptop. But here's where it gets truly disgusting. Hale and Blake aren't just business partners in this fraud. They're sleeping together. Hale's married with 3 kids. Blake's engaged to some investment banker who has no idea. They've been using corporate retreats and business trips to fund their affair, all while systematically robbing the people who make their comfortable lives possible. The investigator's voice grew colder. Lena Mitchell's case isn't unique, Mr. Vance. I found 47 similar cases just in the past 18 months. Single mothers, immigrants with language barriers, older workers afraid of being blacklisted. They specifically target people who won't fight back. Thatcher stood and walked to his windows, looking down at the city below. Somewhere out there, dozens of families were struggling because 2 people in positions of trust had decided their greed mattered more than basic human decency. What's their endgame? He asked. Near as I can tell, they're planning to disappear. Blake's been transferring money to offshore accounts. Hale's been selling his company stock quietly. I estimate they have maybe 6 months before the missing money becomes too obvious to hide. Rebecca closed her laptop with a sharp click. Mr. Vance, they're not just stealing from employees. They're stealing from you. Every dollar they skim is a dollar that should have stayed in company coffers, reducing your legitimate profits and artificially inflating their departmental performance bonuses. But Thatcher's mind had already moved beyond money. He was thinking about Emma's labored breathing in that voice memo, about Lena's careful record-keeping that had exposed this web of corruption, about his daughter Sophia who would never get the chance to be cheated by people like Vincent Hale and Miranda Blake. Rebecca, I want you to document everything. Every stolen dollar, every falsified record, every employee affected. And I want it airtight. Sir, if I may ask, what's your plan? Thatcher turned back to her, and Rebecca saw something in his expression that made her glad she was on his side. I'm going to give Mr. Hale and Miss Blake exactly what they deserve. But first, I need to make a phone call. As Rebecca gathered her files, Thatcher was already typing a message to Lena. I need to tell you something about who I really am. And I think Vincent Hale just made a very big mistake. Lena's hands shook as she read T's message. Before she could respond, another text arrived. My name is Thatcher Vance. Vance Industries owns Morrison Pharmaceuticals. I've been investigating the salary theft you experienced, and you're right, it's much bigger than either of us imagined. Vincent Hale calling you directly means we've rattled them. That's good. Scared people make mistakes. Lena nearly dropped her phone. She'd been texting with a billionaire for weeks, pouring out her heart to one of the most powerful men in America, and he'd listen like she mattered. Like her problems mattered. Why? She typed back. Why help me? Why care about any of this? Because 8 years ago I lost my daughter Sophia to a genetic condition. I had unlimited resources and couldn't save her. But your Emma needed $40 for medicine and I could fix that. Sometimes the universe gives us chances to make things right, even if we can't fix everything. Before Lena could process the emotional weight of his words, her apartment door buzzer rang. She wasn't expecting anyone. Through the intercom crackled a smooth, professional voice. Miss Mitchell? Vincent Hale. We really do need to talk. Lena's blood turned to ice. She clutched Emma closer and didn't answer. The voice continued, I know you're there, Miss Mitchell. I also know you've been having some very interesting conversations lately. Perhaps we can come to an arrangement that benefits everyone. Her phone buzzed. Thatcher, do not let him in. I'm sending security. Keep your phone on and record everything. But Vincent Hale wasn't finished. I've brought my colleague Miranda Blake. She's been reviewing your employment file. Some very interesting discrepancies have come to light. Questions about your background check, your references, your legal status to work in this country. It would be unfortunate if ICE received an anonymous tip about fraudulent documentation. The threat hit Lena like a physical blow. She was a natural-born citizen, but she understood the game they were playing. Accusations alone could destroy her life, make her unemployable, separate her from Emma while she fought to prove her innocence. Her phone buzzed with messages from Thatcher. They're bluffing. Empty threats from desperate people. My security team is 3 minutes away. Don't let them inside under any circumstances. But Vincent's voice through the intercom grew more menacing. Miss Mitchell, we know about your little romance with your mysterious benefactor. Did you really think a billionaire was interested in a struggling pharmacy tech out of the goodness of his heart? We have photos of the deliveries, records of the money transfers. How do you think that looks to Child Protective Services? A single mother accepting expensive gifts from a strange man who's never even met her child. Miranda Blake's voice joined his, syrupy, sweet and poisonous. We're here to protect you, Lena. May I call you Lena? These rich men, they collect vulnerable women like trophies. They help for a while, make you dependent, then they want things in return. Things you might not be comfortable giving. We've seen it before. Open the door, Vincent continued. Let us help you before this situation gets completely out of hand. We can make the employment issue disappear. We can ensure your privacy is protected. All we need is your cooperation in cleaning up this unfortunate misunderstanding about payroll discrepancies. Lena looked down at Emma, sleeping peacefully in her arms thanks to medicine that Thatcher had provided without asking for anything in return. She thought about the weeks of conversations, his patience with her questions, his genuine interest in her dreams and fears. Then she thought about Vincent Hale and Miranda Blake standing outside her door, threatening her child and her future because she dared to question why her paychecks didn't match her contract. She pressed the intercom button and spoke in the strongest voice she could muster. Mr. Hale, Miss Blake, I have nothing to say to you. If you want to discuss my former employment, contact me through my attorney. The silence that followed was more terrifying than their threats had been. Finally, Miranda's voice came through, no longer sweet. Very well, Miss Mitchell. But remember, we tried to do this the easy way. What happens next is your choice. As footsteps retreated down the hallway, Lena's phone rang. Thatcher's voice was calm but deadly serious. Lena, I heard everything through your phone. They just made a massive tactical error. Threatening you directly, mentioning CPS and IC. That's going to look very bad when it's played in federal court. Federal court? Lena whispered. By tomorrow morning, Vincent Hale and Miranda Blake are going to discover that their comfortable little world just became a very dangerous place to live. The next morning arrived with the fury of a hurricane disguised as sunshine. At precisely 9 a.m., Vincent Hale and Miranda Blake found themselves in the Morrison Pharmaceuticals conference room facing a nightmare they'd never imagined. Across the polished table sat Thatcher Vance, flanked by 3 federal investigators, 2 IRS agents, and a prosecutor from the Department of Labor. Miranda tried to maintain her composure, smoothing her designer suit and flashing the smile that had charmed her way through a dozen corporate scandals. Vincent sat rigid, his wedding ring catching the fluorescent light as he clasped his hands to stop them from trembling. Mr. Hale, Miss Blake, Thatcher began, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority, I believe you both know why we're here. Rebecca Chin opened a laptop and projected financial records onto the conference room screen. Numbers told the story that words couldn't capture: years of systematic theft, shell accounts, forged documents, and lives destroyed for profit. Over 4 years, the prosecutor said, consulting her notes, you've stolen approximately $8.3 million from your own employees. But that's not the most interesting part. The screen changed to show photographs. Vincent and Miranda at luxury hotels. Credit card receipts for expensive dinners, jewelry, weekend getaways. All charged to Morrison Pharmaceuticals as business expenses. The most interesting part, the prosecutor continued, is that you've been conducting your affair on the company dime while systematically destroying the financial stability of working families. Miranda's composure cracked first. This is a witch hunt. You can't prove. Actually, we can. Rebecca's voice cut through the room like a blade. We have 4 years of financial records, testimony from 47 affected employees, recorded phone conversations from yesterday's attempted intimidation of a witness, and, most damning, your own communications. The screen filled with email exchanges between Vincent and Miranda. Corporate emails discussing their theft strategies were interspersed with personal messages that would make a romance novelist blush and a family court judge reach for the gavel. Vincent found his voice. You can't use those. Attorney-client privilege, expectation of privacy. You sent them through corporate servers, Mr. Hale? Every keystroke belongs to Vance Industries. Your expectation of privacy ended when you decided to commit federal crimes using company equipment. Thatcher leaned forward, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. But let's talk about yesterday, shall we? Your decision to threaten Lena Mitchell and her infant daughter. The screen changed again. This time, audio waveforms appeared alongside transcripts. Miss Mitchell, we know about your little romance with your mysterious benefactor. How do you think that looks to Child Protective Services? Miranda's face went white as her own voice filled the room. These rich men, they collect vulnerable women like trophies. We've seen it before. Vincent's voice followed. What happens next is your choice. The prosecutor smiled, and it wasn't pleasant. Witness intimidation is a federal crime, Mr. Hale. Threatening to involve ICE and CPS in fraudulent claims adds several more charges. The fact that you did it to silence someone reporting your financial crimes elevates this to racketeering territory. Now, Thatcher said, standing slowly, you're both going to listen very carefully to what happens next. Rebecca distributed documents to the federal agents. Every employee you cheated will receive full restitution plus damages. Every family you hurt will be compensated for the financial hardship you caused. The money will come from your personal assets, your pension funds, your offshore accounts. Yes, Ms. Blake, we found those too. Miranda started to speak, but Thatcher held up a hand. I'm not finished. Morrison Pharmaceuticals is implementing a new salary transparency program. Every offer letter, every deduction, every policy will be available for employee review. We're creating an independent oversight committee to ensure this never happens again. He walked to the windows overlooking the parking lot where employees were arriving for another day of honest work. And Lena Mitchell, the woman you threatened yesterday, will be heading that committee. She starts Monday with a salary of $75,000 per year, full benefits, and a budget to investigate any financial irregularities across all Vance Industries subsidiaries. Vincent erupted, You can't do this. The board will never approve. The board already has. Emergency session last night. Unanimous vote. They're particularly interested in your creative expense reporting, Mr. Hale. Seems they don't appreciate having their names associated with fraud. The federal agents stood as one. Vincent Hale, Miranda Blake, you're under arrest for wire fraud, embezzlement, witness intimidation, and violation of federal labor laws. As the handcuffs clicked into place, Miranda looked at Thatcher with pure hatred. You think you're some kind of hero? You're just another rich man playing with people's lives for entertainment. Thatcher met her gaze without flinching. You're right about one thing, Miss Blake. I am rich. Rich enough to make sure every family you destroyed gets justice. Rich enough to ensure you both spend the next decade in federal prison thinking about the lives you ruined for spa weekends and expensive jewelry. As they were led away, Vincent called back desperately, "This won't stick. We have lawyers, connections." Had, Thatcher corrected. You had those things. Now you have prison jumpsuits and the knowledge that your greed destroyed dozens of families for the price of a luxury vacation. 6 months later, Lena stood in her new office overlooking the Morrison Pharmaceuticals campus. The plaque on her desk read, Director of Financial Transparency and Employee Protection. Emma, now healthy and happy, played in the corner with toys provided by the company's new child care program. Her phone buzzed with a text from Thatcher. How's the first week going? 3 potential fraud cases already identified, she typed back. Looks like Vincent and Miranda weren't the only ones with creative accounting practices. Good. The program's working exactly as intended. Lena paused, then added, Emma said her first word yesterday. What did she say? Lena smiled, looking at her daughter who was babbling happily while stacking blocks. She said, Daddy? I think she was referring to the only male voice she hears regularly on phone calls. There was a long pause before Thatcher responded, I'd be honored to meet her in person sometime. If you're comfortable with that. I'd like that, Lena typed. We both would. As she looked out at the employees heading home to their families, Lena thought about chance and choice, about wrong numbers that become right answers, about the difference between people who take advantage of others and those who lift them up. Vincent Hale and Miranda Blake had received 15-year sentences each. Their victims had received justice, restitution, and something more valuable. The knowledge that their voices mattered, that fighting back was possible, even against seemingly insurmountable power. Emma gurgled happily in the corner, playing with blocks that spelled out words she couldn't yet read. Hope. Justice. Family. Sometimes the universe does give us second chances. Sometimes a wrong text message changes everything. And sometimes when we're brave enough to stand up for what's right, we discover we're not standing alone. What do you think? Have you ever had a moment where everything changed because of one unexpected event? Share your stories in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible true stories that prove truth really is stranger than fiction. Until next time, remember, time and chance happens to all of us. The question is, what will you do when your moment arrives?